definitely the weight went back on the wedge, didn't it? So now I can hit. So, come up and take a look now. If I'd have left any thicker hinges, that fiber is kind of starting to dry out, so it's a little bit of a strong fiber there. Now, how do we do on target? Pretty close. And lengthwise, we're a little bit long, which that's good, right? A face notch was 70 degrees or more. How thick do we want the hinge?
An inch.
So look at that. Look. Dead on, all the way across. And you see, I'm level there. And what that gives me, you know, a lot of times people say, well, I want to leave a little more on this side than that side. Well, what they showed me, it was a fiber expert with Mead Paper back years ago. And he said, you know, if you think about your hinge 1 inch thick, where's it going to break from first, the back or the front?
Back.
The back. What if it's 4 inches? Is it going to break from the front or the back? The back first, right?
Yeah.
What if it's 1 inch over here and 3/4 over here, and it starts to go? Where's it going to break from first, the thick side or the thin side?
Thin side. Thick side.
The thick side. You see, the fiber's running vertical, so it's immediately going to start to pull and break from the back side. That's the reason why you'll always see a little longer fiber along the back side of the hinge. You see here where I had to stretch it a little bit? Even in that little bit, you start seeing it being pulled a little bit. So probably a perfect hinge on that tree would have been about a 1/2 inch across. Would have been plenty, and it went over a lot easier. Because how far forward was it leaning when it finally fell? A good bit, wasn't it? And so, you know, when you start to think through that, a hinge breaks from the back to the front. Now, a lot of people say, well, you know, what I do on that one, if I want to move it over 3 more feet, I'd hold a little more over here and cut a little more over here. And I said, okay. First of all, is that a plan? Well, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to hold more over here. Well, you tell me how much you're going to hold, then that'd be a plan, right? In other words, if you're going to stay here, and how much more should I hold over there to pull it over 3 feet? Who can tell me? Nobody. It's a guess, isn't it? It's a guess. So how much more do I hold, or how much do I take off? And you can be accurate with it. I can tell you can be very accurate with it. And Soren was good at it, man. He could take a tree leaning way back, bring it around like crazy. I wasn't that good. I mean, I could do a couple. But it's something to where we found out once we went to a straight hinge, we could hit the target probably 9 out of 10 times or more. 10 out of 10. And so it's not guessing, especially when you get into a select cut where you're trying to cut away from other tree stuff. On a logging front, clear cut, no big deal. It could go out there, it wouldn't be any problem. But if a top hits or a limb catches, then you got a mess. It spins out. So biggest thing is, where do you have to stand to do that? To be able to stay there to get that thick and this is thin, where do you have to be to do that? Most cases you got to be right beside the tree, don't you? What's the #1 injury? Fatality causer, struck by us. And so stuff starts to fall. You notice those stayed hanging, didn't they? And really I was on the good side away from the 2 hangers anyway. But it's something where when you start to look at it, is that's usually what you'll find is the hangers are on the leaning side of the tree. That's just how they blow over there and hang up, you know. But sometimes not. But if I saw something that could fall, then I'd say, hey, how about spotting that for me, you know? Make sure you check. And if something starts to move too much, and dead trees that were leaning back, the guys would start a cut in the back. They'd come around at an angle, then they'd cut over here. They'd start a wedge over here. They start pounding and pounding and pounding. Well, if you still got this much wood there, what happens? Top starts doing this number. You notice when I got down to the hinge there, when I cut the back off, the first hit I hit, it went, get a little shake in the top, but every time I tapped it, it went forward. There's no resistance. If I'd have had a bypass in there, I had one up in Illinois a couple weeks ago, ash tree, guy had a 2-inch bypass. I got it on video. You can see it on this week's Along the ForestApps Road. And it's 2 inches of bypass. And basically, it was a forward-leaning tree. So when he released it, he cut on around. It started to go a little bit early. He had too much hinge on the side. It went over. I mean, it's a huge ash tree. About 24, 26 inches across, probably 85, 90 feet. That thing went over like this and stopped. I mean, 45 degrees out in the air like this, because that bypass was holding it. And then the fiber let loose, and it fell onto the ground. But that's something where you want to make sure this back edge of the face notch meets exact. And best thing to do to calculate it is to have exactly what you want here, whatever you call it to be, and then you want to be level to that. Because here, let's say if I had straight fiber like I can come up here anywhere 2 or 3, 4 inches with a stump shot, do my back cut higher. But if I've got angle fiber like coming out in the front of this, that fiber, if you were to do a high stump, you'd see that fiber is running out to this root. And so if I cut up here 2 inches, what did I just do? I just cut my hinge off unknowingly. And if you start working out of a bucket or climbing, and you got a limb collar like that up there, any limb collar, look at it, it's angled fiber. So if I start trying to control that limb to a given spot, if I'm above or below my notch that I put in there, it's not going to be accurate. It's going to peel off or not hold at all. I had a question this morning about back cut being level. And you know, when it might come out level here, but if you cut down like this, what does that mean? Really nothing, as long as you can get it to this position before it starts to go. If you had a heavy leaner and you cut down like this and it starts to go here, now it's got a split here to go forward with the hinge. And if you look at any hinge that you have that's above, you'll see it's like thick here where you think it starts, but then the bottom of it will be like this. And that's all the hinge you got. It tapers down. So if you start cutting down like this, if it goes too early, that could cause a split. The other thing is, if I have to jack it over, flat, I have ingrained fiber on both sides of my wedge. If I angle down, when I try to drive it in, it starts trying to split that fiber apart because you're driving 2 angles. Okay. Another thing, if I had to pull a rope, as I start cutting down, it's going to split, or in reality, it's going to start to break from here instead of pull from the back of the hinge. It has to split forward to start to break the hinge. If I'm level to it, when I get down that angle, it'll still break from the back to the front, but you're probably not going to make it that far in all cases. So it's just some mechanics to think about. But if you use less than a 70-degree face notch, what should your back cut be? If you start to look at people that use common notches, in many cases they got bypasses on every one of them because it's very hard to get that back to meet exact. With an open face, or at least 50 degrees or more, you'll start to be able to get to that back corner with your saw. But it's so much easier just to stand up, you can look into the top cut, make the bottom cut meet. It works really nice that way. It's wide open. And you can go bigger than 70. You could come way up here if you wanted to.
You use the same theory on see like the tree in back of it, that's 3, one up and then split to 3.
Back there?
And then there's another one back here, 3.
Yeah.
It's split trunk.
Yeah.
The split trunk.
We did one up Monday and Tuesday. There was you know, if you look at these are actually 2 trees grown together. In between those splits is bark. So if you can get a face notch all the way across these 2, you could bring those 2 into here. But problem you got is you got a lot of side lean this way, a lot of side lean this way that's trying to break your hinge off sideways. So it's best to treat a tree like that as 2 trees. One going that way and one going this way, or if you want to try to bring them this way, take one at a time. Okay? And what we did on the one the other day is, you know, it was up this high. And so he said, I got to cut way up here. I said, no, all you got to do is come down here, put your face notch, bore cut in, set up your hinge, cut back, and as soon as you get back to the back, that bark's going to separate and that tree's going to go forward, and you got another 4 feet of material, and you didn't have to stand on your head to cut it.
Because I noticed a lot of trees in here are like that. I just wondered if the same theory would work this way with those trees.
It works exact. You know, like you might be able to get a little bit of side movement out of it there, but basically you don't fell it with the lean. You know, if you got an opening. If not, then what do you got to do? You got to take it down from the top. You don't have an opening for it. But there's a dead one over there we can look at, this twin, if you want to look at that. Huh? We can go over there and take a look. Y'all go over and look, see where you want to put it. Well, let me do this first, then we'll take a look at it. This tree's down instead of walking all the way back over here. What was the plan on the board that I talked about? Oop, you're okay. So I'm looking for hazards. Anything over my head? Nope, good to go. Wherever I choose to cut, remember I said I really want to think about one person on the saw with a chainsaw until it's stabilized. That means these high limbs are down and stuff. I don't want somebody over there cutting because it could flip on them. Next thing is I want to try to work from the butt end whenever possible. If I go out here and I start to cut, there's a chance it could flip on me. and I don't want to pass any limbs. So first thing I'm going to do is, if I want to take that section off, I would, or if I want to work it on up, I'd take these bottom ones off and then the top one, or top one and then the bottom one. So I work from that end. I always have an escape. Really, with a tree that's horizontal, you don't have an escape. You got to have your tail in the right spot, because it can flip very quickly and you can't get out of the way. You can't run back from it like you can with a tree. So in this case right here, I got to figure out what's my first cut. Which way side? If I was to choose to cut right here, that's kind of at the three-way. If I choose to cut right here to lower that one down first, where's my compression and tension? Where's my compression up and down? On the bottom or top? Bottom. So I always cut compression first. I need a straight cut or I need a face notch. If it's a straight cut in, it's not going to move very far. What's going to happen? It's going to try to stop. I put a little slide notch underneath, overcut, allow that to go down to the ground, then cut my hinge off. If I wanted to lower it down, I could do so with these two, actually. I could think about my compression is on top. I put a slide notch, undercut. I could go the other side if it doesn't flip over, and I could put a notch on top and undercut. But I'm going to drop this first one off on top first. Could it go side to side? Could there be back pressure? It's already got a little bit back where the limbs pushed it back a little bit, but it's not up against anything, so I'm not saying it has any. Slide notch underneath, overcut. I leave a hinge on there until it hits the ground, then cut it off. Actually lifting up her a little bit, but I've got offset cuts. It quit moving, started to close on the bottom, and so offset cuts you can use, especially if you got equipment coming. You can be able to touch it with equipment, break it right apart. So I can use offsets on this and move forward on with it. I think on this one there'll be compression on the bottom. This is vertical. Oops. You ever been stuck? Yeah. That's the first time I've ever been stuck. Today. But look at this now. If I get stuck right here, watch. If I pull this down and that chain separates from my bar, where does that pressure go? In other words, if I take the chain, I pull it below the bar, where does that pressure go? Crankshaft and the bar tip. So if I get stuck on here and I roll this thing around, I get where I can pull that chain away from it, all that pressure is going to my crankshaft. I can mess up a crankshaft pretty easy that way. So I have to think about that. If I get stuck, I need to figure out another way to get out of it. If I use offsets, oftentimes it'll kind of cantilever a little bit. Which side of that should I have cut first? The side that stuck me. That was compression side, wasn't it? So if I see it starting to close, I don't keep going, what do? I reverse. Just that simple. Just that simple. On this you can go in and out and be able to do it vertically like I did the offset on that one over there. And you just go down through here. I'll just do that. I'll make a few cuts. One of them though, I'll show you tongue and groove. this one, it's a tongue and a groove joint. So you got a log, you don't want it to roll down into the ditch, or you don't want it to twist on you. A lot of times with storm stuff, you know, you see it's cracked all the way down through it. You start trying to cut it, it tries to go back to its original position. It'll start to grab your chain. You can bore cut through the middle, cut your compression side, then the tension side, don't have to worry about it. And every place that I offset, you see, it's actually cut. So I can go up through here, don't have to worry about it, grab my chain. I can just go up through here and make all these offsets. Pretty much you bring the machine in here, it just pushes it all together. Can work pretty good. Now one of them, I don't know if this is big enough or not. You ever seen log levitation? You know how you get a big log across the road, it's right on the asphalt or gravel? You can use your log, so we can keep it there. I'm gonna cut down through it, place a wedge, see if we can lift it up. Just twist it. But you could do that. I did it on that big one yesterday, and it lifted it up probably 4 inches. You just start in, as long as it's on the ground on both ends, you continue driving it, and it'll pick it right up. And the other thing is, if you decide to cut on down through it, it's lifted a little bit, but if you decide to cut on down through it, it doesn't close on your bar. So wedges can be pretty cool, used in a lot of different ways. So that's log levitation. Takes when you cut a big stump, you start on the outside and you start going around it. Well, if it's dirty, you keep sawing on that dirt all the time. With this technique too, it'll keep the stump up. So, you know, if you start from the outside, if you don't wedge it or pin it up with a stick or something, it starts sitting on your saw. With this one, you always get your saw out. Reason for it is, it fills sawdust back in. And so all of this is holding the stump up so it doesn't sit down on your saw. And you can go right at ground level, even sometimes a little bit below. Take the stump right down. I have a little competition we do on the hands-on class of boring through a block. And the guys, they'll go push, pull, kick, start. They'll still walk up there and try to start it with the upper side of the tip. If you try to start with the upper side of the tip, what's going to happen? It's going to kick every single time. So you got to start with that pulling side of the tip to go into it. And another thing I see too, a lot of times when people are cutting this stuff up, they want to go all the way down over here like this, cutting stuff. Well, where does it put you in relationship to the tip?
Right up next to it.
Closer to it. And so if you think about it, if I've got a good sharp chain, I can stand up. That tip's got to go a long way to get to me, doesn't it? I start thinking that a lot of people think it has to go up against the power head. And if you have dull chain, that's where most people want to go with it, because you got to use that for leverage to be able to get the chain to cut. Chain's not set up to do that. It should be sharp. Let's go over and take a look at that tree, see if we can see what we do with it. Well, I'm not so sure that one does have a seam in it. But this will be, we can do that for technique wise with it. So, you know, I might try to go side lean with it, this way or this way, but this way it's going to hit. I could go down there, but it's probably going to hang up in that tree. Don't want to damage that maple. Right down through here, we could put it between the canopies right down through here we could go. Got a big hanger there, guys. So what do you think? Out through here, over there? You got to clean the other one up over there. So what's our plan? So we got to aim between, so we got to go right down like towards that cedar tree over there, right? And it's going to probably, we got to go between the two branches, but that one's going that way. It's probably going to push it past. I don't think it'll break it off. And so in line with that cedar tree over there. So if we look at this, side lean to there, almost perfectly straight. So just straight shot. I definitely have forward lean. So in this case right here, I'm going to say this would be my good side. My escape's back over here. I'm going to leave a 1-inch hinge on it. Okay? And I'm going to bore cut this one because if I start at the back, it's going to start to move, isn't it? So I'm going to bore cut this one, come back, release the back, walk away. Y'all help me to watch now so we don't have people walking out through here, okay? Watch that direction for me. Does it come back towards the stump or not? So you stand there looking, it can be a mess, can it? Pretty close on target, kind of flipped over a little bit. We didn't break any limbs, did we? Nope. Sometimes you charge extra for pruning. This one now, we definitely have back lean, don't we? We got a little spot here. Same basic target. So if this tree goes wrong, where's it going to go? Where's the good side? Good side's over here, right? That one broke.
On top of the other one.
Look at these two over here now. These are like those ash I talked about in Illinois. There's no hinge. You see that? Fiber is past its bendable life. And so a couple more, well maybe another year, at least next spring, you wouldn't be able to control that at all. I really had a little bit too much hinge on that one. But that one's just dry. But it's amazing, isn't it? I mean, it got all the way up till the hinge started to go, and then we had weight to this side. It flipped out, rolled back over, but you could tell, you could hear it breaking. No reason to stay there. What do you got to do? Get out of there. Get out of there. But you know, like I said earlier, you can have a plan in 30 seconds what you can do with a tree. You'll know whether you can do it or not, and usually have 2 or 3 options, you know, to work with. Dead trees are hard to predict though. You never know. And sad thing is, that's usually what you guys have to deal with, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
They're not going to let you cut down a decent one.
A lot of dead ass trees, man.
And if it goes wrong, that's where it's going. We got to watch tops coming back, but you got good lean here. Those I had at the golf course up in Illinois at the Paul Newman golf course a couple weeks ago, they were like yard trees. Every single one of them was straight. You had to make every single tree do what you wanted it to do. And they were like this, and some of them where you put a wedge in it, you touch it one time, it goes, and you know, I'm going here, he's going here, you know, trying to, but I had all the other people back in the class. But you know, that you can't really practice on a tree like that either. And the place to practice for hinges and notches is take that stump and make you a few, or take your log and start making a few, because that's you want to make sure that you control that saw. Because you know, if I'm cutting this tree from the back, where does my eye need to be looking? Think about it. I'm not going to answer it. Somebody's got to tell me.
The thickness of your hinge.
All right, how are you going to do that? What position do you have to be looking at to know what thickness of hinge you have?
You gotta look at it from the side.
You got to look down the face notch, don't you? If you go back over there and you stand to the back corner of that and you got a notch going across in this direction, can you see the other side of the notch? You can't.
So you gotta lean around.
So best place to cut, point A to point E, is a straight line. Point B, not lead. So you put your face notch in, up to your hinge, you know you got it. But if you take your eye off of that notch, you don't know what you're cutting. And I have it all the time, whether bore cut through or cut from the back, and guys will leave that tapered hinge, you know, and they say, well, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to leave more over here and over. I said, bull. You couldn't see the other side. There's no way you can tell me you saw the other side of it. So, you know, unless you tell me I'm going to cut it down to a quarter over there and have an inch and a quarter over here, it's not a plan. You basically cut it off unknowingly what you had. Luckily, if you're on the good side of the tree, you can probably get out of there without messing up a chainsaw. You can probably run anyway, but you're going to smash a saw if you're on the bad side and you start cutting the hinge crooked. Guaranteed you. It's good for saw business. So any questions over anything we talked about today? Remember the planning processes, and that's the place to really concentrate. The hazards, the lean, escape, the hinge size, back cut, and then think through. And you know, I think I see a lot of times with city and county crews and state is that, you know, you got pretty much a plan in your head before you start. But if something doesn't go exactly right, then basically we start rushing to get the mess cleaned up, right? Always go back and reevaluate, because I learned more from them going wrong than I ever would going right. And if you have a plan together, you're probably still going to survive doing that. But you learn so much about what fiber does and how you can control it and all this kind of stuff if you'll come back and reevaluate. Ones that work right and ones that work wrong. And the guys this week, they were just absolutely amazed when we started cutting all those dead ash down beside the shopping center, is that, you know, we took about 15 trees down through there, and every one of them just lined right up. We had side leaners, back leaners, forward leaners, and went really good.
Is there, so I'm left-handed.
I'm so sorry.
I know. There's no way the township is going to buy a lefty chainsaw.
They don't make one.
I know. That was going to be my
Did
question.
you know McCulloch did?
Did they?
They made one from 1966 to 1970.
I can do it righty, but it's still like, even after the tornado and all the wood, all the tree stuff we've done for weeks, it still is awkward.
Well, and I said, sir, why did they quit making left-handed saws? There's a lot of left-handed people like them. He said, well, we found out something pretty quick. I said, what's that? He said, left-handed people are cheap. I said, why do you say that? He said, we made the thing for 4 years and they just kept buying the right-handed ones, you know?
Yeah.
And so we took it out of the line because nobody bought it. And but you can get a wrap handle.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah. Where's my saw? Go pick up my saw and I'll show you something. And this is something that's very important. The reason why you need to practice with left hand on front. Come here. Left hand on front, right hand on back. Okay? So try to cut straight down on that stump right there. Just straight down. Just straight down. No, just.
Okay.
So now you can go to the side. There you go.
Yeah.
But you go the other side now. Put your hand the other way. You won't get away from it.
Yeah.
Now when you start bucking this up, try to cut down straight right there. You're dead center really big time.
Mm-hmm.
So if you change hands there, now you can be to the side of it all the time.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I'm learning to do it righty,
Yeah.
but I was just wondering.
I mean, that's like, I think it's a left-handed chainsaw myself, because if I was left-handed,
You would want to
I
control
want to hold
it.
everything, the weight in my left hand. But left-handers, they don't want it that way. They want the control with the throttle in their
Yeah.
left hand. But it puts you in a position, if you trip and fall back, it dead centers you.
Mm-hmm.
You can't get away from it. It's dead center. With a wrap handle, you can offset a little bit, but you still have the bar close to your legs.
Yeah.
So they don't make left-handed chainsaws, sorry. Gentlemen, if you don't have anything else, I appreciate you taking the time today. Please tell those around you and above you and below you if you enjoyed it. If not, let Carol know. And I'll tell you, she does we go with a lot of different organizers around the country, and she does a jam-up job. And all the programs that they have, it can all be a big benefit to you. So hopefully you take advantage of it, getting programs together for you. So
Thank you.
thank you. Enjoyed it. Been a good group. So
Damn it, I'm ready to cut some trees. Let's go.
No, then we have to chip them afterwards. Don't even start.
how big is your chipper?
Not big enough.
Not big enough. So it won't take 15-inch, huh?
No.
That's all we did after the tornado.
Do you have? I saw you have a grapple truck though.
That's not ours.
Oh,
We have a bucket truck.
Well, there was a grapple truck out here loading
That's
yesterday.
from FEMA.
Oh.
Yeah. We got the county and FEMA. And YouTube channel called again?
It's just Tim Ard. TIM space ARD.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Our last couple of trees, ending up 4 weeks on the road. We're in Abington, Pennsylvania, and we're on our way back to home. It's been great. We've had over 240 people through classes and workshops these past 4 weeks in Massachusetts, Illinois, and then finishing up in Pennsylvania. It's been some super groups. We've had some challenging trees, some dead ash and dead oak trees, but we've met some fantastic people working for cities and towns in 3 different states. But it's quite interesting, and I hope you enjoyed looking through some of our field presentation. The trees that we selected were in parks in most cases. They were dead ash or oaks or cherries. Planning with the group, giving them the information they need to be able to take them down safely, and then looking at some different techniques in planning to be able to buck them up, take them into that next step of cleanup. We're very pleased to be back home, back to what we call the E-Nest. Next week with the North Georgia Air Show, and then the following week back on the road. So thanks for going along with us on this long trip. Please subscribe and press that like button. Give us some comments. Let us know what you'd like to watch. Thanks for traveling with us and watching Along the ForestApps Road.